Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I give you all of the latest gaming news. And a big question surrounds the Xbox Series S right now. Will it hold next generation consoles back or not? This has been a big question in the community, so we're going to dive into that today. Also, 505 Games may have lied about that Control next generation upgrade, so don't go anywhere and we will talk about that as well. First though, let's go over some of the quick news, starting off with Panzer Dragoon. So the Panzer Dragoon remake released exclusively for the Switch back in March of this year. Of course, this is a beloved game for fans who played the original on the Sega Saturn back in 1995. So it was always interesting to see this old Sega franchise come exclusively to a Nintendo platform, which was their biggest rival back in the 90s. Well, now the Panzer Dragoon remake has been confirmed to be coming to the PlayStation 4 and PC. It will also be coming to the Xbox One at a later date, though they aren't saying how much later that will be. For that matter, it doesn't appear that they have a set release date for the PlayStation 4 and PC version, though this is Sega, so I'm thinking this may end up getting a reveal at the Tokyo Game Show later this month. I keep saying this, but TGS 2020 really sounds stacked. But either way, I hope you Panzer Dragoon fans are looking forward to this. Moving on, we got a couple PlayStation topics to talk about. So earlier this year, Xbox revealed their Xbox Series X optimized emblem for box arts, and depending on who you asked, some liked it and others not so much. It was a little big, but in my opinion, at least consumers aren't going to be confused. That's just the way I look at it personally, but it looks like PlayStation took note here as they're also adding their own emblem to PlayStation games. As you see here, both Riders Republic and Immortals has PlayStation 5 upgrade available on the bottom of the box art. It's not quite as big as the Series X emblem, but again, there will be no confusion here. If you buy a PlayStation 4 game that has a PlayStation 5 upgrade, it will tell you right on the box. I think that this is a great thing, and I'm glad both Xbox and PlayStation is doing this. Granted, more and more people seem to be going digital, and that will surely increase next generation, and Sony will even be offering a digital-only PlayStation 5, so I'm sure less people will be buying a physical version, but even then, I like this approach from both. Now, as for this other PlayStation topic, Sony apparently has an unnamed event next week on September 18th at PAX Online. The title of this event is simply being called Sony Holder as of this video, but I'm sure we're going to get some more details on this throughout the next 7 days. The question though is, what exactly is this event? And I know speculation is going to run rampant here. Xbox just had a huge blowout this week for the Xbox Series, and we got the price and date for those consoles. So surely Sony is going to be giving the price and date of the PlayStation 5 rather soon. I mean, you have to remember, Xbox Series pre-orders open up on September 22nd, so Sony's really going to want to talk about the price of the PlayStation 5 before then. Well, just today, Sony added a new private video to their official YouTube channel for the PlayStation 5, so that's very interesting. Could they actually be preparing to make a big PlayStation 5 announcement soon? Could it really be at PAX Online? That would be a strange place to announce this stuff, but then again, Microsoft basically announced theirs through a blog after it got leaked online, so PAX Online could work. I see no issues with this personally, but I would assume if they are going to make a big announcement on September 18th, we will likely get an official announcement either Monday or Tuesday from Sony to prepare us. This is all speculation though, and nothing has been confirmed just yet. All we know for the time being is that Sony has a PAX Online event prepared for next Friday. Speaking of next generation upgrades a moment ago, I have some great news for Rainbow Six Siege fans. Obviously, Siege is one of the more popular competitive multiplayer games right now, and I myself believe it's one of the best competitive games thanks to its unique tactical team-based combat. Well, the good news here is that Rainbow Six Siege will continue on next generation with a free upgrade for both the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5. It will run at 4K resolution and 120 frames per second, which is fantastic news. This is a game that can clearly continue on for years and years to come, so this upgrade was very much needed, and I'm loving this trend of getting these free upgrades. Unfortunately though, there are some other publishers that aren't exactly giving us those free upgrades. So last month, 505 Games announced that Control was one of those games, and that unless you buy the new Control Ultimate Edition, you will not get an upgrade for the Xbox Series or the PlayStation 5. In other words, if you bought the Digital Deluxe Edition, which includes the post-launch expansions, you would unfortunately receive no upgrade for next generation. It's basically the Ultimate Edition without the next generation upgrade. Yeah, it was kind of an odd announcement last month, and fans were not exactly too happy about this. And after they received a lot of criticism, 505 Games finally posted a statement which basically boiled down to it being impossible to give a free upgrade path to the Ultimate Edition for current Control owners. Well, about that, apparently several PlayStation 4 players were reporting that 505 Games accidentally gave free access to the Digital Deluxe owners yesterday, and then later on it was degraded back to the original version. On the surface, that seems like no big deal, but when we go back to their original statement of them saying it was impossible to upgrade current owners to the Ultimate Edition, that doesn't exactly seem true. Yeah, it does look possible after all, and if fans were upset before, this certainly is not going to help. I mean, the whole situation was always strange because there are several other games getting these free upgrades, so why was this one being treated differently? One thing is for certain though, this is a terrible look for 505 Games. Let's talk about the Xbox Series S though, because a few things came up over the last 24 hours. Xbox has confirmed that the Xbox Series S will run Xbox One S backwards compatible games with higher frame rate, improved texture filtering, auto HDR, and faster load times. Now, this statement has created some confusion because this confirms it will not be using the Xbox One X enhanced version of games, but this actually does make a lot of sense. And stick with me here. The Series S caps at 1440p and upscales to 4K resolution. It does this because 4K is very demanding, and by capping it at 1440p, it will allow the Series S to perform better in every other category. This is why it can run games like Gears 5 and Call of Duty Cold War at 120 frames per second. It's also why it can do things like ray tracing, whereas the Xbox One X can't. So of course the Xbox One X was advertised as a 4K machine, and that is the main focus of Xbox One X enhanced games. So the Series S is using the Xbox One S version of games because it's not a 4K machine, but it does enhance the One S games in other ways, as I originally mentioned. I think what Xbox needs to do here is just call these Xbox Series S enhanced games to kind of clear up the confusion, because these games are enhanced in other ways. With that said, I would like to see them confirm a few other things, like if they will bump up backwards compatible games to 1440p, or will they remain at their original resolution. So that would be nice if they clear that part up, but overall the Series S will give you better looking backwards compatible games, and I'm loving the HDR inclusion here. This has been a hot topic though, because there has been a big debate pretty much all year long. Will the Xbox Series S hold back next generation consoles or not? This has been a big question among the community for quite a while, because yes, it's not as powerful as the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5. With that said, it's no slouch either. It has the same processor as the Xbox Series X, but it does have less teraflops and less RAM. Now, you do have to remember that this is a 1440p machine that upscales to 4K resolution. 4K gaming is very demanding, so by lowering this resolution, you will not need the same amount of GPU power. The thing that makes the Series S so impressive though is more in line with its processor, which is a huge jump up from current generation consoles. With that said, there was a big Twitter thread yesterday with a developer concerned over the Series S specs, claiming that it would hold the next generation consoles back. Well, this of course brought up a big debate on if this is true or not, and Gavin Stevens, the co-owner of Team Blur Games, quickly doused the fire here by saying no, the Series S will not hold back next generation consoles. Now, he posted a huge thread himself about all of the reasons why he is saying it will not hold next generation back, and I will have a link in the description below, but I'm going to focus on his main points. 1. The Series S is not a last generation console, and he really emphasized that. Think of it this way, the Series X and the S both have the same architecture, and even have the same CPU. So developers will likely develop with the Series X in mind, and then just scale them down to the Series S. Things like resolution and ray tracing, and yes, the Series S is using next generation technology, the same as the Xbox Series X. It is RDNA 2, and this is a big jump up from the Xbox One, which was using Polaris architecture. He essentially says that the Series S eats past generation consoles alive thanks to things like sampler feedback streaming, I/O improvements, faster memory, ray tracing, etc., etc. This should also make it easy to develop games for both, and he even talks about this. He says anything that the Xbox Series X can do, the Series S can do. The other main point he really tries to hammer home is something that I've mentioned a few times already. 4K resolution requires a massive amount of power, and he says by targeting lower resolution will require much less GPU power. This allows that GPU to do other things, as that resolution will no longer be tying it up. Now, he does talk about some other things like ray tracing, which will be less impressive on the Series S than the Series X, and things like that, but that's all pretty obvious. The Series X is a more powerful console, and if you want the most powerful console in the market, then the Xbox Series X would be the way to go. But to Gavin Stevens' main point, the Series S will not hold back the Series X. Will it look as good? No, it will not, but the Series S is still a great entry point into next generation, especially if you don't care about resolution. That's actually interesting though, because just a week or so ago, I saw an article where most PC gamers are still using 1080p setups, and that's PC gaming. I imagine you're going to see something very similar with TVs. A lot of consumers are still using 1080p TVs, so they don't necessarily need a 4K console, and the Series S is a very viable option for those people. It has ray tracing, it can run games up to 120 frames per second, it has an NVMe solid-state drive, and as Gavin mentioned, it's a big jump up from the Xbox One X and the PlayStation 4 Pro. The icing on the cake here is that it's only $300, which is just insane. I will ask you though, what do you think about this entire topic? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.